Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County Mayor, and as we travel around the county, we have the opportunity today to talk to Dr. Mike Looney, the superintendent of director of Williamson County Schools, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always a pleasure to work with you and to talk about what's happening across the county and certainly the schools as well.
Well, let's jump into it. We're finishing up the school year, or actually just finished up, and I know you always have a lot of good news to like to share with the people about some of the acclimates, not only the students, but staff and where we are, and it's phenomenal what's happening here in Williamson County.
It really is. I have to pinch myself all the time and ask myself if I'm in heaven or if this is real. Certainly, it's been a memorable year on lots of fronts. We had a lot of our employees receive regional and state and national recognition for various things, whether it's Teacher of the Year award or the best science teacher ever kind of thing. So just speaks volumes to the quality of educators that we have working here in Williamson County and that move here for the school system. And as far as our students go, I don't even know where to begin. We now have surpassed $1 billion in college scholarships. $1 billion with a B. In college scholarships right here in Williamson County since 2010, which is unheard of. I can't even begin to imagine. Well, you're an expert on what a dollar saved in Williamson County does as far as the turnover rate. So it has an exponential impact on our community. But we have kids that go to Harvard and Yale and MTSU and Columbia State. So we have a wide variety of colleges that our kids go. But most of our kids go to college for free, which is really awesome. The average graduate in Williamson County Public Schools receives $60,000 in college scholarships. That's unreal. And so I know their moms and dads are happy about it.
That's why they move here. Well,
absolutely.
A lot of reasons, but they move here for schools.
Yeah. Rogers, this last week I was just surveying how many of our kids have really just exemplified excellence in education. This year we had 19 students score a perfect on the ACT. And I've always been told, when I was in college, I didn't even think about getting close to a 36, but it was the unreachable, and now it's 19, just right here in Williamson County. We had scores and scores of kids that get national merit finalists and you name it, and they're doing it. Not just in academics. I mean, they're doing it in athletics and arts. Fairview has won the 2A division soccer tournament. We have there's so many things. I could go for hours. I need a whole show.
Well, the show is yours, and I think it is important. Sometimes the press oftentimes points out that the schools and the county commission, school boards and the county commission, and you and I had those up, go back and forth on the financial side, and I guess that is true. But it's also true that at the end of the day, we try to find solutions, and you take the money that's appropriated and asked for, and the school board and you and all your staff develop a plan and a curriculum that many, many people are moving here. Once they find a job in Middle Tennessee, oftentimes those people do settle into our community, and that helps to hold those property values up.
Of course. We know that the schools are a significant part of the quality of life and the reason people move. It's not the only reason, but it certainly is one of the main reasons. And as it relates to the budget, you're right. There's a perception that we have a push-pull type of relationship, and we do at times. I mean, but the truth of it is, that's how it's supposed to work. It's a system of checks and balances, and I wouldn't want to have unfettered access to money because I'm like most people. I would end up finding a way to spend it. So, because it's for the kids. But the truth of it is, the system works. We have a budget this year. It was a tough, really tough budget year. But we figured out how to make it work thanks to the commissioners that you work hand in hand with, and my school board that pushes me to get things done. So I'm not complaining. It's a good thing, and it's transparent. We do all this in the public, which is really good.
Well, and we certainly want to say thank you to our partners, and our partners in this case were oftentimes our parents who went to the polls in February and said, let's increase after being educated, after being told. put it on the ballot. Let's see if we can increase the sales tax a half a point, and it passed overwhelmingly. Our community is very educated, and if you get that message out, then there's no doubt people will make good decisions on what they need to make for their schools, for their students, and for themselves. I do want to back up a little bit. This is 2018. You've got a couple of new schools opening up. Actually, I guess 3.
Right.
That will we just barely shut the doors on this school year. We're already talking about, well, of course, you're already planning for it, hiring teachers and principals
Right.
and stuff. But let's talk about a couple of these new schools that are coming online, and then what's out there in the future over the next couple of years.
Sure. Well, I was at Thompson Station Elementary and Middle School this last week, just inspecting the construction project. It's located in Thompson Station, obviously. It's a really good looking school. We got a lot of punch for what we got in it, but you know, it's going to open, and I have bad news for you, Mr. Mayor. It's going to open almost full, and so you know that's always.
Now,
a
where are
scary
those
problem.
kids feeding in from, Dr.
Yeah,
Looney?
so they're from Thompson Station, the Spring Hill community. We've taken students primarily from Summit High School, feeder pattern, and they're coming up, and quite frankly, some from the central section of the region, the Page community, and the students in the Oakview community. So it's kind of from all angles, we're going to be driving students there. But that's not the end of it. There's a lot more growth happening in the Spring Hill Thompson Station area. And then in the north side, we have Jordan Elementary School that's going to be opening. It's along Split Log Road, as you very well know. It too is going to open up with about 500 students, and so it's not full yet, but it's going to be there very soon. And that school obviously was relieving many of the overcrowding challenges that we had in the northeastern section of the county. But once again, if I was down that road just I think it was yesterday actually, and the number of houses being built along the Clovercroft corridor towards Nolensville is incredible, and it's really a scary proposition. I don't know how we slow it down, but the construction business, residential construction, and even commercial construction here is alive and well, for sure.
When you look out there for the next 5 years, and we put some, I won't call them markers in the ground to help pay for some of these schools that are coming down the pike through some shifting of some dollars and cents and the sales tax and all the things that go into good planning for the next 5 years. And I've heard you make the comment, we're at about 38,000 students now, approximately, give or take a little. In the next 10 to 15 years, we'll be looking at, certainly knocking on the door of 50,000 students. And when you think about this phenomenal growth that's occurring, which takes a lot of money for bricks and mortar, but the real challenge is, how do you find good qualified teachers? I mean, I know that Murfreesboro, I think they still graduate as many high school, middle, elementary teachers, anybody across the state. But the success that you were talking about earlier in the show, these scholarships and these 19 perfect ACTC. Now, a lot of that comes with the gene pool and the family you were raised in. I openly acknowledge that. But having good teachers from those kindergarten years all the way through the 12th grade, those teachers that are committed in the changes in our society, how do we keep up with that, Dr. Looney?
I don't have an easy answer. I know that we're working hard and we're recruiting every single day. I had 3 interviews this week for leadership positions. The applicant pool is shrinking some, but to be honest with you, the reputation of Williamson County helps drive people to us. And more often than not, we have at least more than one qualified candidate to consider. But at the same time, I hear a lot of people shy away from Williamson County because the level of expectations that we have of our employees is so high. I've had people tell me I can make more money and do less work elsewhere because the expectations are just at the rooftops here. But we're still being successful, at least in the midterm. I don't see that overwhelming us. There are some hard to fill types of positions, special education, math and science, foreign language teachers. Those are getting harder to come by. I interviewed somebody from California this week. So our recruitment net spans the country.
When you talk about, when you look into your crystal ball and you try to direct, and that's all you can do. You can't be in every classroom in every school every day doing it. So you've got to have good people. Is technology the future of some of this training and education we do? I know that I'm often reminded when I see my grandchildren picking up their smartphone from their parents and being able to navigate different things. Is technology still driving and will continue to drive our public education?
Certainly, the role of technology is expanding in our schools. This upcoming year, we're going to have nearly 500 students involved in online learning classes. I don't foresee a time when they replace traditional brick and mortar buildings, but they certainly are a tool that we can use to better equip our students for the future and also to save money. And so we're using that to the extent that we can. But there are always technology challenges. You know, you've seen the news about the state testing fiasco that we've had now for, I think, the 4th year in a row. You know, technology is not perfect. There's always challenges related to it. And as soon as you buy a device, the next greatest thing comes out and this other one's obsolete because the developers of these devices make them obsolete very quickly. So it's, you know, we're always kind of chasing our tails on technology. But the reality of it is technology is a tool that our students and our educators have to be able to use to be proficient in the real life, so to speak. And so we're working hard to do that.
Mike, when you think about the challenges coming down the road for you in Williamson County Public School System and challenges the school boards have to make, and lay aside the issue of money. I mean, that's always going to be there. I mean, even in our personal lives, there never seems to be enough money. But when you look at and survey what's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, and I'd suspect you've got as good a handle on that as any school superintendent and director across not just the state but the nation. What are we needing to be preparing for? And I'm talking traditional, for the traditional student that goes on to a continuing education. The days of a young man or a young woman just graduating from high school, I do want to talk about that because you're working in that area for that student that goes to school, that with a little continuing education, he or she can step into the workforce and make a pretty good living, and that's important.
Sure.
But as you look in there, what things do you see out there? Is it artificial intelligence? I mean, we now have the ability to equip an automobile that can drive itself. We now have the ability that the medical side, they can literally go in and help people curb some habits, and I think we'll see that in artificial intelligence, that be able to probe deep into the mind. Some of it's beyond my comprehension, certainly don't know how to do it, but I know it's coming down the pike. How are we going to continue that for public education, not from the funding side, but what are we going to have to do?
Right. Well, there's a couple of challenges. First and foremost, we're driving into our students in Williamson County, and I hope everybody else is, that we live in a world that's ever-changing. And so our students have to be prepared to be lifelong learners. We have to continue the learning process because it's changing all the time, and we don't want ourselves or our skill set to become obsolete.
Sure.
So being self-motivated and driven to be a continuous learner and to be willing to work with others. What we hear all the time is our kids are really smart, but it's getting more difficult for people to interact with one another. And I will tell you, I think technology is part of the culprit. You know, we are so quick to text and email each other now. We can't have face-to-face conversations. So being able to work as team members and deal with people from different perspectives and viewpoints, and what's happening across our country now is I think we're probably as polarized as we ever have been in our country. And so getting people to find commonalities and work across differences, being good team members and being willing to listen to different perspectives and open to change, I think is the driving factor. Our social fabric in our country is changing, and so getting students to relish the things that are really best about us and humanity and in our country and our community, and also being willing to confront the things that aren't so good about us, and being willing to make change. And I hate to bring up a negative, but if you think, and this is not about guns at all, but if you think about at least the social engagement that the students did as a result of the Parkland school shooting, take away the issue at hand, but talking about students getting involved and big issues and challenging thinking, and whether they have the right or wrong answers, indifferent to that. It's about them at least engaging in the conversation, and I think that's a challenge for us.
Well, and you bring up a topic that behind the scenes, behind that curtain of where financing is at, which is a big part of my world. 10 years ago, you and I didn't worry about SROs, student resource officers, in our schools.
Absolutely not. When I was in school, we brought our rifles to school, and they were in the back of the pickup truck hanging on the gun rack.
That's exactly right.
And so times are so different these days. Our kids are confused and quite frankly scared at times, and so are our adults. And so I don't know how as a superintendent I change that, other than to try to be open and have dialogue and talk about school safety and the county commission through your leadership. And I will say this: Jeff Long is an amazing man and does an incredible job with us, and is a great partner. All we can do is to try to keep school safety on the forefront.
Millions of dollars are going into not just personnel, but equipment, security measures we're having to put into each and every school now that could be better spent in the classroom.
Oh, can you imagine the expenses of push buttons to get into the school, and video surveillance equipment, all the things that we have to think about now with school safety? It's really a travesty. It's kind of speaks to, though, this changing environment that we're living in, and our kids have to be prepared to deal with that moving forward.
Moving the needle a little bit on the record player, if you and I remember that term.
Oh, yeah. It's 45 or 33 speed.
It doesn't matter, either one of those. Yeah, I understand that world may be making a comeback too. Let's talk about that student, though, that decides, I don't want to go to the University of Alabama or Tennessee or Murfreesboro. I want to finish school, have a good skill, good trade, and start to work immediately. Talk to us.
Well, I would tell you there's a huge resurgence in interest in career technical education, not only here in Williamson County, but it's kind of a national movement. The reality is not all of our students need to have 4-year degrees or should have 4-year degrees. We need people that have skills, technology skills, whether it's being a plumber or an electrician or somebody that knows how to lay brick and supervise brick masons. Those are huge areas of need in our growing industry, our community and economy, and kids have a genuine interest in that. Fairview High School has done something really, really cool, and so some of our students get to walk away from Fairview High School not only with a high school diploma, but also with an associate's degree. And so in mechatronics, and so I couldn't give you a textbook definition of mechatronics, but it's basically engineering, problem solving, and so teaching our students problem solving skills leads to work. It leads to high-paying jobs. These kids can leave high school and in some cases make $40,000 or $50,000 a year with a skill that they've learned through the CTE programming here in Williamson County.
And you've got a program similar to other schools.
Oh, absolutely. We've got drone program at Nolensville High School.
That's amazing.
Where you can leave us and go to work for Amazon or the FAA or realtor companies, the power companies that are now using drones to, survey their line network. And so there's so many other avenues. We have fantastic culinary arts programs where kids walk away. They work with some of the best chefs in the country, and honestly could leave us and go straight to a reputable restaurant and manage the kitchen. So we have a little bit of everything for kids.
Something that's dear and near to your heart, and likewise to mine. Just in the last couple of weeks, you had a graduation for our young men and women that are going to go into the military, either I know you were a veteran, as I was, and that means so much to so many people. And I think in today's world society, those young men and women that are embarking upon that military lifestyle, and oftentimes they go into ROTC at some future school, and then they go on to become military officers or commit to that side of the program. I often have the opportunity to speak to groups with American Legion, et cetera, and you see that number dwindling. I've often been told that probably less than 10% of the people now that are actually living will ever see any military life, whereas you're certainly younger than I am, and myself, it was almost, you had to do that. For me, that was the way I went on to college to get the GI Bill. But I do always want to recognize and acknowledge those moms and dads out there where their children, and maybe they have a boy that was like me that needed an additional 4 years of as my mother used to say when she was taking cucumbers and making pickles out of, you need to be pickled a little bit. You need to be trained.
That's a good way to get it done.
And the military will do that.
Yes.
And I never shy away from those young men and those young men that have got that skill set of discipline. It's a wonderful way to embark on a career.
It is. That event actually is one of my favorite days of the year. This year we had 41 students that plan on entering the military right after high school, and of course that day is so special because you can just see the pride in their eyes and their love for our country and for lack of a better word, esprit de corps. They want to be part of a team and stick together, and they're service oriented, right? They want to do good for humanity and for our country, and just as exciting it is to shake those young men and women's hands, to see their parents and grandparents and siblings in the audience just beaming with pride, it's just a really good day. And so I'm so glad that we do that. I'm so glad that you get to participate when you can. And I wish more people did that because it is a tremendous sacrifice. And I want to say this, it's not just about the military, it's anybody that's going into, first responders.
Oh, absolutely.
Going into the medical field, law enforcement, all of those things. Those are honorable professions, and we need people to do that. And I think it's important that we recognize them.
I couldn't agree with you more. When you have an unfortunate event that happens, a fire in your house, a medical emergency, you need an ambulance, I really am thankful for those men in our community, men and women in our community to get the best. Dr. Looney, we've got about 5 minutes, and time gets away from me. I'm sure that I've overlooked something that you would like to talk about, something that is important or near to dear to your heart. Here's your opportunity.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. I want to talk about some of the difficult times that we have. Summertime is a time when many of our students that are fragile, whether it's emotionally fragile, mentally fragile, or health-wise fragile, or quite frankly live in tough circumstances, that's a really tough time for kids. I always tell my employees, we like to go home on vacation because we have funding, we have electricity, but there are people in our community that simply don't have that, and so I just want everybody to keep in mind those boys and girls that perhaps need some additional support during the summer months. My director of guidance counselor was sharing with me that summertime is actually some of the most prevalent time when students commit suicide because they don't have a support network there. And then the other thing I would like to mention is just please don't be a distracted driver out there. Watch out for young, inexperienced drivers. Stay away from them if you can, and stay off the phone when you're driving. My phone rings in my car, and it's really hard not to pick it up or get a text message that dings and not look at it. But we just want to make sure everybody's safe in our community, and in particular our youngest and most fragile amongst us.
Well, you've got about 90 days before the next student comes back into class. I don't know why we don't go ahead and acknowledge we're going to school year round. It's just about 60 days we're away from it.
You know, I used to hear people say teachers get into teaching because they have summers off. When school let out, the very next day, the Tuesday after, you know, teachers returned on Monday. On Tuesday, we had 500 teachers in professional learning sessions. They weren't on vacation. They're working. So this whole notion about summers off it's fake news, Rogers. They're still at work.
After we open the schools this fall, you've got a school, one of those schools I think is opened up in January.
Yes, yes.
Gosh, I'm trying to think of the name of it.
I've gone blank too. I've got too many schools.
Yeah, over in Brentwood.
Yeah. So, you know, you're talking about the STEM building?
Yes, the STEM building.
Yeah. So, you know, we have, as you know, we have 17 schools and/or additions in the pipeline over the next 5 years. And the one that's the next standalone school that's going to open up beyond the schools that are opening this fall it's most likely going to be Oakview Area Middle School. I don't want to give it a name yet, but it's the school that's going to go on the property right next to Oakview Elementary School. That section of our community is growing very, very quickly. We also have another elementary school planned on the eastern side of this of I-65. That's kind of the dividing line for us to help with the Trinity area and Clovercroft growth that's happening there as well. So no stopping of school construction, and you know, it's going to be a challenge.
Well, and we often hear Matt Largent over at the chamber speak about the phenomenal number of people that are coming into our community from all over the United States and, quite frankly, the world. As the jobs continue to grow here in Middle Tennessee, as we said earlier, oftentimes a lot of people settle into our community. So you're correct, and that we will be in a school building mode for many, many years, and we've just got to figure out ways to handle all this growth. And I'd ask people to also understand that, yes, there is traffic, and anytime a community is growing like we are, you're going to have traffic. And I think it is incumbent upon you and me as leaders in our community and our other city officials to try to find solutions for those, but quite oftentimes they're not as easy as we'd like to acknowledge, and lots of reasons, lots of excuses for that. But we are making strides in that, and you just have to find ways to get things done.
Just go to the Franklin Rodeo. I saw it. There's so many cars there. It's incredible.
I worked there last night. I can assure you, there were lots of people. There'll be more. We're out of time. Thanks again. Thanks for what you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good to be here.
Thank you very, very much, and we will see you during the school year of 18-19. Absolutely. It's around the corner. I'm Rogers Anderson, Williams County Mayor. Thank you for being with us today.
Quiet Voices by Susie Sims Irvin. Quiet voices clothe winter's jagged edge. Doves murmur secrets under velvet breath. Blurred hills stand still, frozen to woolen sky, stand to wait in line outside in freezing rain. Black satin streams bathe themselves beneath down robes of snow. Above their flowing nakedness, whispers of vapor rise to trace their sleek unwinding through the muted browns of fields laid by. Night reads to himself from poets of starlight. Day gathers clouds for the table. Quiet voices need not speak for those who listen.